Hey, everybody, welcome to the Dream Big podcast with Bob Goff. This is your co host, Scott Schimmel, and I'm here with the one and the only Bob Goff. Hello, Bob.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're having a terrific day.
Hey, Bob, rumor has it you used to be an attorney, or you still are? How does that all shake out?
Evidently, I have a couple pieces of paper in a file cabinet somewhere that says I'm licensed in 5 states. But I just have not been limited by just what my capabilities are. And just say, who's the guy that I am now? And I do some other stuff other than law.
Well, that's interesting. That's why I brought that up, because you can be capable of doing something, but not necessarily made for it. So when you think back on being an attorney, how do you make sense of that? Was that something you were made for, something you were capable of doing?
Yeah, I think we all change over time. Like when I was 26 and graduating from law school, man, I was made for the law. And actually, by the time I was 36, I was having a great time. But by the time I was 46, I was thinking, you know what? I think there's some other things that are getting my interest a little bit more. And they involved these kids that didn't have opportunities to learn and to learn how to read and write. And so then I started doing the next thing. I started just going. And the whole idea of this podcast is to talk to friends of mine that have been on that adventure to say, I know there's things I'm capable of, and whether you call that a calling or you call that a opportunity, but whatever it is that you took a next step. And so I took mine. I wrote a book, and we just gave all the money away, which is awesome. And then we started building schools all over the place. I think we have them in 6 countries now.
So the dream can change. And you mentioned you got a friend that we have on the show today. His name's Jason Russell, and you guys have been friends for a few years now, right?
Actually, the cool part about Jason is he's the guy that got us into Uganda so many years ago. Invisible Children had just started, and then they hit a little snag in Uganda. And I thought, well, I'll go over, see if I can help out. And so while I was over there, I made my way to the courthouse to meet the judges. And I found this judge that had all these machine guns out in front of his office. And it turns out it was the Chief Justice of their Supreme Court. That would explain all the machine guns. Well, I went in as if I was invited, and we started this friendship that's now 15, 18 years old. But it was Jason, and seeing some of the things that he was doing as he was living out his dream, that then enticed me to say, man, maybe there's something that I could do. And I hope that you'll ricochet off of some of the ideas you hear from Jason or other guests that are friends that I'll have on the podcast, and it'll inspire something in you. You'll say, I don't want to be Jason, I want to be me. That's when you know you're in the good stuff. Who is it that God's made you to be? How do you live into that? And take whatever steps you need to go pursue this beautiful ambition that you have.
Well, Jason's a guy that's had big dreams, chased them, and he's seen those dreams change like you. So I'm excited to listen in to your conversation with him.
Yeah, and Jason's just a delightful dreamer. Like all of us, he's had a couple setbacks, but he hasn't been defined by those. He actually has his eye on the horizon, and he's saying, who is the guy that I'm meant to be? And they're just going to keep moving in that direction.
Well, let's listen in.
Hey, Jason, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I will come anywhere you invite me, Bob.
What we're doing is having some conversations amongst friends about ambitions that we've had. I've had a couple. You've had a couple. We just want to tease it out. Like, how did you go after these ambitions? What things did you do? So let's start with just a couple of the ambitions that you had out of college. You had some ambitions. You want to make some movies. Tell us about those for those of you that haven't heard your story.
Yeah, so my family started a children's theater company. My mom and dad did. So the spiritual background of my childhood is musical theater. It's called Christian Youth Theater, CYT. So I grew up performing on stages, and by junior high, I started directing and choreographing, and I found more joy out of creating a story and watching it play out in front of an audience being in the audience, being the director.
And you didn't just have you in the musical theater. Wasn't there a dashing young gal that was there?
There was. I met my wife when she was 6 and I was 7, and I never looked back.
You guys, theater.
This is our
it's
15th anniversary coming up in October. Yeah. So
wow. That was an ambition you didn't even know you had.
You're right. Well, I knew I wanted to marry her since I met her.
Really?
Oh, I knew at the moment I met her. I said, that's the one. And, I was open in high school and junior high to find other individuals, but she was still the girl in my heart. So, yeah.
Well, so you did that, and then you had an ambition. You wanted to make some movies.
I wanted to make movies because I grew up in the theater, and I realized you can only tell a play, to about 1,000 people a night. And I wanted to tell a story to millions of people. And the only way to do that was to make movies. So in 8th grade, I asked around, where do I go to school to learn how to make the best movies? And they said, you got to go to USC Film School. And so this was one of my ambitions since I was, in 8th grade. And I failed many times at trying to go to that school.
But wasn't USC, they let in one half of one person each year?
Yeah, exactly. It's like more competitive than Harvard Law. Yeah. And so like a lot of people want to get in, a lot of talented people want to get into the USC Film School, and very few make it. So I got denied 3 times before I finally made friends with the admin the individuals who look through our resumes and stuff. And I think it's because of that relationship they let me in. They might have felt bad for me.
Let me ask you to pause just there for a second. So if you're listening, you've got some ambition. Maybe it's making a film, maybe it isn't, but you know why you're doing what you're doing. And if you're clear about the reason why you're doing what you're doing, then you say, if there isn't a front door, I'm going to find a window that's ajar. And what you did is you found somebody in the admissions office, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
And to say, I'm going to befriend that. I'm going to let everybody know what my ambition is. And I think there's some people that have an ambition that's as beautiful as yours. They just haven't let everybody know. And so they haven't had a chance to let everybody jump on board in making that happen.
Yeah. And it's very scary or intimidating to let people know, because then you're kind of held accountable in a sense. Like people might ask you about, hey, how's that ambition going? And then you're like nervous if you haven't made headway, or you're still ambiguous about what the next step is. And so it's pretty vulnerable to say, here's my dream or here's my ambition.
Yeah. So you might tend to kind of undersell it to everybody else. And you're actually being dishonest with yourself. I wanted to be a lawyer, and they told me that every 3rd seat in law school, they flunk them out. I kept counting. No matter what end of the road I started, I ended up being the 3rd seat. And I was really had to decide at some point, I'm going to let everybody know my ambition is go to law school, to get out, pass the bar, try to do some good. But it's a little bit scary to declare your ambition, because then you're kind of like, if you don't get that, then the risk is that you're afraid you'll look foolish to people and all that. But the people that I've met that have achieved a lot, they just got past that. They said, I'm going to look foolish if I don't pursue my ambition.
Yeah. And I think that death is such a great motivator. And when you look at people who are on their deathbed and they're like constantly saying, I wish I did more. I wish I tried more. I wish I took more risk. Then it's like, well, learn a lesson. These people are taking their last breath saying they wish they pursued their ambition more fervently, right? In a sense. And so I think what's really important, like for me, and I didn't know this at the time in 8th grade, you don't know much, but it's like, what makes you come alive, or what makes you the most yourself? I don't know how else to put it, but it's like doing that thing is the thing you were put on earth to do. And if you've never had a moment like that, you need to start trying things and try them on until something feels like, this is actually me. If I could get paid to do this, it would be a dream life, a dream job. And so I think that the world will be so much more exciting if more people are pursuing the thing that makes them more themselves, makes them come alive.
There's a saying in the South that kind of be where your feet are. And that's always been a great kind of slogan, to be present, like actually where you are. But that doesn't mean that you need to leave your ambitions right there. You can be looking outward towards the horizon, towards this beautiful ambition. Be fully where you are. Be self-aware. This is where I'm at.
Totally.
This is I got to make rent. I have relationships that matter and are worth all of my attention. Yet you can have an ambition on the future. How did you navigate that? You had your wife to be.
Mhm.
You had an ambition about film school. You got in,
Mhm.
and then you started doing magnificent things around the world with your art.
Yeah, I think it's just for me, I usually have a few things on the oven, cooking this and cooking that. That's just like my style. And I do that also because if something takes longer than the other thing, then you can turn that pot up and start working by doing that. And so, I mean, I've always had a bunch of dreams and ideas on the plate, but like I didn't know that the film that Bobby, Laren, and I made would turn into a nonprofit, would turn into a movement, would turn into this thing that was basically a rally cry for a generation to pursue justice.
Isn't that crazy how you can have an ambition, but not all the details?
Yeah, because I mean, it didn't hit me till our friend Tom Shadyac, who's a director, he said, I've never seen a movie with the call to action at the end. You didn't put the credits at the end. You put, here's what we can do about it. It's going to take your time and talent and money to get this all done. And we were just experimenting. We didn't know if anyone would respond to this, right?
Yeah, and
it had no clue.
What's crazy about it later, as we're looking in on one another's lives, it looks like, well, obviously you got a camera and you just had all these opportunities to meet people, and then you made a movie. And what really happened along the way is that you had an ambition, you were moving in that direction, and then when opportunities came along that served that ambition, you jumped on it.
Exactly. And to be honest, like Laren, Bobby, and I, we had a hard relationship. The trip was really difficult. The first film, it wasn't like we were all getting along. We weren't even really friends, but we were making this product together. We got back and we didn't even know if we were going to make the movie or finish it. Bobby went back to school. Laren started lifeguarding. I started looking through the footage, wondering if, there's a massive year or two of doubt of like not knowing if we're going to finish it, not even knowing if we had a good movie. I think that anyone who's doing anything, whether you're creating a business or you're writing a song or book, you don't even know if it's going to be good. And maybe it's not at first, right? But I think that what happened was when we finished the movie, people watched it and the first response was, what can we do to help? These kids are caught in a war. What can we do to help? And we looked at them saying, we have no idea. We just make movies. It's not our expertise to figure out the international justice system, or so we thought. And so we just said, well, who's in charge of this? If these kids are being held hostage, who's going to bring them home? And we started to interview and explore like anyone who might have an answer. And that turned into Invisible Children.
I just love that idea. Instead of feeling complicated, that I hope if you're listening, that feels really freeing, that you do the next thing.
Yeah.
You know what your ambition is. You look for an opportunity. And then when one comes by, like net that like it's a butterfly. And to say, actually, I'm not going to just like think about it, wouldn't be swell. That'd be like brain candy. But actually, when the opportunity comes by, say, I think there's something there. I think we ought to jump on that. Well, so a couple things worked out. It got bigger. You apparently are okay with ambiguity. I picked up in our friendship over years. Like you and ambiguity go everywhere together.
Yeah, sure.
There's other people that are actually seeing other people. They'd be like, they don't want ambiguity. They're just not their friend. Talk to me about a person that when it's ambiguous, they're just like shy away a little bit. Because I can understand the people that are like winsome and go for it. Talk to the person who's listening that wants a little bit more detail before they go for it. How do they pursue their ambitions when your whole track has been that you look for an opportunity and you went with it when it came by?
Yeah, I think that I do seem like I'm good friends with ambiguity. And at the same time, I try as much as I can to do my research, to learn as much as I can about what it is that we're going about to do. But you don't have enough time most of the time to spend years researching the history of Uganda and the conflict and everything else. And so you really have to learn on the job. You have to go to the places and spaces in which people are living out the story of the conflict and hear from them. And I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of people to understand the nuances of the challenge, the struggle, the tribal conflict, and understanding why it's so difficult to bring innocent children back to their families. So in terms of like branding and storytelling, I want clarity around that and specificity. I think specificity is a really big one that a lot of organizations or brands miss. Like they have this epic mission or they have a great product, but they don't know how to translate that to the audience. Like to specifically say, here's what you can do to support it, right?
Yes.
Beyond maybe a donation.
I'm thinking of on the Enneagram, the 7.
Mhm.
I'm a flaming 7. I'm guessing you are, but I'm not sure.
I'm a 3.
3? Tell me about
I'm a
that.
3 with a 2 wing.
Oh, I had that all wrong.
Major
I
3.
feel like
but you and my wife are 7s. I most of my friends are 7s.
Really?
Yeah.
But one of the hallmarks of a 7 would be a ton of enthusiasm, and then right underneath that, a ton of strategy. Like you know why you're doing what you're doing. Yeah. Tell me about a 3.
So I take life too seriously. That's like I'm really healthy to be married to a 7 because she's like, it doesn't have to be that hard. You have to find a way to enjoy your life because I'm very intense about accomplishing, succeeding, getting things done, like really getting after it, staying up late, working in order to achieve and succeed. And so I measure my identity and my self-worth based off of the things I've accomplished and I've done.
So the danger of that is when you have a setback along the way, is like that can feel like you feel that deep.
Definitely. So for me as a 3, having a successful organization, having a lot of people's like attention, inspiring the hearts and minds of young people to get involved and do more, and then making a ton of promises and putting Ugandans to work and building radio networks in Central Africa and getting bills passed through Congress and getting on Oprah, and all of those things were a 3's dream, like success. And then for Kony 2012 to come out and have it be so successful, hyper successful, and then the result of that was backlash and a naked meltdown, that's like a 3's worst nightmare is failure.
Very publicly failure in front of
millions of people
that you wanted to inspire.
Right.
And then if you did you feel like you let them down?
Oh yeah. I feel like I let down everyone. I feel like I let down the Invisible Children staff, the board, all of the supporters, all of the people we worked with in Uganda. So many people lost jobs, lost faith in the pursuit of what we were saying was possible for so long, and now it's been how many years later and Kony's still at large and we know of his crimes now. At least 120 million people who watch the video know about them. And so is it my responsibility to make sure that Kony is brought to justice? I don't know. I mean, I made it my job, me and my friends, and we all made it our jobs to do that because we felt that our friends, Jacob and Tony and others, that their lives were just as valuable as ours. Before Black Lives Matter even became a movement, we were pretty much saying that. And we were saying, Black Lives Matter over here too, as well. And so I think that's what's the hardest challenge is that to communicate like how dark and how depressed and how sad it was to lose all of that.
You really went down the hole on that. That was really heartfelt. What was a period of time that you felt like that immobilized you?
Yeah. It was 2012 was when the movie came out. 2014 is when majority of the staff transitioned out of a job. I was included in that, became a board member, and then had to figure out what's next. I had never thought of working anywhere else or doing anything else, to be honest. So
that must have been a big shift as well to say
major.
Your whole life has been one thing. So what a good thing to talk about for people along this topic of ambitions. Some people have a beautiful ambition. They went for their beautiful ambition. And for whatever number of reasons, it like disappeared. It was a relationship. It was a career. It was something that mattered a lot. It was a purpose, a project. And that either went away or exploded. You somehow navigated your way towards saying, okay, I want to get back, looking towards the horizon, pursuing some new ambitions. So get us caught up on that. What did you do to get back in the saddle? I don't know what metaphor would be most appropriate, but to just say like, I have some things to say and some things to participate in creatively. I'm going to bring those. I'm not going to get hung up. I'm not on the street corner anymore.
Right. I think that people can resonate, those who have had divorce, who have had loss or a career change or some kind of failure, that in the long run, they will say that that taught me so much about what does matter and what I do value. My friend who I worked with for over a decade said to me, I don't know if I would like the Jason if he didn't have a breakdown.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I don't know if I like that 3 achiever, like always succeeding, the pursuit of that, because the ego that arises in you is not someone I want to be friends with.
Sometimes you can lose some authenticity, because I've always felt like the people that want to straight line it and make it sound like it's this upward trending
Right.
graph. Always, I wonder if their fingers on one end of the
Yeah.
table, just kind of like making it like kind of just stacking the deck a little bit. I'd rather trust a friend. There was a guy who taught me wood shop in high school, and he was walking through each of the pieces of equipment, and he got to the table saw. He said, now this one, you need to be really careful. And he'd actually lost a couple fingers on one of his hands. And one of the things that was crazy about that, I didn't trust him less. I trusted him more, because he actually probably hadn't been careful.
Yeah.
And so he was a guy I would trust his voice. Do you feel like your voice is more trustworthy, having experienced the thing that would be death to a 7 or to a 3?
Yeah.
Did you just do you feel like your voice can be more trusted?
The thing that has opened up for me, which I feel so grateful, not that I'm an authority at all, but just that I can like dwell in the space of mental health, has been so liberating and educational. And the lack of conversation that we're having around mental health, not just to mention this crisis of gun violence, but the crisis of suicide is very intense. When you look at the statistics in young people who are taking their lives, it has to ultimately do with mental health or lack of community. And so I am the recipient of a lot of those stories of people who've had breakdowns, and my breakdown liberates them. They're like, I can't imagine mine being that public. Like, I had mine, but only my family knew. And so what I'm learning is that there's more people dealing with mental health issues that they're afraid to talk about, where I'm just saying, guys, if we all talk about it, then we'll be all free.
Yes.
So, I got invited by our friend Jamie Trukowski to the first White House mental health forum that Obama put on. And it was pretty amazing to be around all these people who care about this space. But I think we'll be in a different spot maybe 5 or 10 years from now if people have enough courage to keep speaking up about the crisis. So that was one of the things that I view as like a gift, to the breakdown, that, and it can be totally random people, that see me and say, hey, by the way.
Isn't that crazy how the more authentic we can be, not having it look like you're together, but actually saying, this is a reality. I've got some questions. I've got insecurities. I've got things that have dogged me for years. If you can get authentic with people about that, then people go like, relatable.
We want to let you know that this month we've got a freebie that we want to send your way. It's called Declaring Your Big Ambitions. Here's the idea. You might not be clear about what your big ambitions are. So we've got this downloadable PDF to help you sit down with a friend, a cup of coffee, a journal, and a pen for a couple hours on a Sunday afternoon and walk through the questions in this PDF about how to define what your dreams are, what your ambitions are for your family, for your career, for the kind of person you turn into, the problems you solve in this world, even the ways you seek to be generous to others. So check out the show notes. That's where the link is to download that PDF, or go to the website dreambigframework.com and we'll make it available to you. Download the PDF, grab a friend, and have a big conversation about your big ambitions.
When I was a kid, I had freckles, and I still have quite a few. And there was a guy who was particularly mean. There always is. And he called me Spot. And I was so bummed. I was literally, as a kid, I had an eraser.
This is elementary school?
Yeah, I had an eraser. I was trying to erase my spots. And you know what my grandmother said? She said, don't tell anybody about this because it'll make them feel really bad. But each one of those is an angel kiss. And it didn't make the spots go away. It just like gave them meaning.
Yeah.
And so something that was like really painful to me, it gave meaning to them. And I found by the time I was in junior high, I was connecting the dots like giraffes everywhere.
Exactly.
And so to just take some of the things that have been painful, be self-aware enough to know that was really difficult for little 7-year-old Bobby Goff.
Yeah.
But you know what? He's going to grow up. He's going to connect the dots. He's going to figure out that these things can be the basis for actually speaking so much hope into somebody else's life.
Right.
Knowing that the words coming from you to me in a dark place, yours carry a bunch of power with me because you're the guy at the table saw. You're actually, I trust you more because I've experienced, I don't know, a decade or more of life with you.
Yeah, exactly. And I truly believe that everything in your life is preparing you for the opportunity that is to come. And that very much includes the failures, that includes the mess ups, that includes you going after your ambition and it not working, and it not working and it not working. And so like for, when Invisible Children ended, for me, it was like a time to reassess and sit back and say, okay, well, what are we good at? My wife and I, my love, what are we good at? And how can we contribute? We got to make some money to pay the rent. And we ultimately said, more than anything, we don't want to wait to travel the world with our kids when we're retired. We have friends who live all around the world. We'd love to take them now while they're in elementary school to reshape their world, to burst the bubble that we live in San Diego. It's a beautiful bubble, but to have them actually live in a village in India for a month where it's $1 a day.
Okay, Bill, some people would say, okay, well,
how do you do that?
You just lost your job. You just lost everything.
Now you're going to travel the world.
Now you're fully clothed. But so now you have this ambition, but it involves going around the world. That's what like CEOs of like Ford or Chrysler or something do. But you said, I'm pointing towards the horizon.
Yeah.
This is the time. This is the opportunity I have where my kids don't have day jobs. We're just going to do it. Somehow you didn't let the reality of how impossible that would sound keep you away from your ambition. Like, tell me, like, what was it that said, that sounds nuts.
Right.
I'm just going to do it anyway.
Right. And so I should say, you don't just jump to the trip. It took 3 years of planning and, masterminding how we're going to do this because we didn't have any money.
That's so healthy.
We left Invisible Children with literally a month and a half of money we had to figure out what to do quickly.
So does everybody hear that? Like, because it makes it sound like, so then Invisible Children blew up. So I went to India and Nepal.
No, it was, wait. No, I mean, because it's a nonprofit, like technically I couldn't even leave with a camera. So I started the company with 2 cameras and I couldn't leave with a camera to go film my next movie. They said, no, if someone finds out, it could look bad on paper or whatever. So I was like, okay, about a month and a half of money, we did a Kickstarter to launch this children's book we had talked about for many years called A Little Radical. And I said, if we sell enough of these books and maybe try to get a sponsor to sponsor the trip, we could make it onto the plane. And remember, we're, flying coach and had a nonprofit organization hook us up with even cheaper flights. And we were living in, developing countries. So it wasn't like fancy hotels. So like the budget was much smaller than you would think a trip around the world would generally be. But it took 3 years to like save the money and work. And then we sold all of our stuff. So we sold all of our furniture, everything in the kitchen, all the kids' toys, everything has to go. Like we had 4 suitcases and that's it.
One of the things that I think people need to hear is that you get an ambition and it just involves a lot of strategy behind it. To say what it's going to take is a lot of commitment and sacrifice to get there.
Right.
Because people make it seem oftentimes, not intentionally, but they'll look at different people's lives and they'll say, well, it just happened. It came together. They go, well, yeah, if I was fortunate enough as you, they go like, no, if I was as strategic enough as you. So I'm going to write a book. We're going to find an illustrator. We're going to actually, didn't you do the illustration?
Danica
yourself,
did all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
She did
So
all
we're
the
going to
wood,
do
yeah.
that. We're going to find a publisher. We're going to go to countries where we can live for $1 a
Yeah.
day. And we're going to get as many air miles as we can, beg and borrow from people.
Totally.
And make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the strategy makes it real, right? It's the thing that when you see the blueprint of the thing that you're creating, this is a real measurement of where the door frame is going to be. And, so I really think that strategy informs the dream itself as well.
So one approach, and more of a 7 approach to this, is build the plane while you're flying it.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm down with that.
And the other approach is spend a lot of time preparing. There's not a wrong approach,
right?
But what we want to do is move from just preparing to being ready. Because I think a lot of people get hung up with achieving their ambition because they're always preparing, but they're never ready. To say, I'm ready, I am open to this thing, I've had an ambition, I'm ready to go, give me a shot, and I'm in.
Yeah.
And so I want the people that are listening to think of what your ambition is. What is it that you've been thinking about? Tell everybody you can about that, because you're going to recruit a lot of people along the way. They're going to find out like, wow, you want to go around the world? I actually have about a zillion frequent flyer miles.
Right.
And to say like, well, do you want a couple tickets?
And Mike McDonald hooked us up. He bought us a flight.
Oh, I love that.
Like,
He's hooked more people up. I love that guy.
I'm just like, there's people out there, and I think it also is worth bringing up this idea of white privilege. I think that it's true that, yes, Danica and I were born into a zip code and into a family that would have privilege. And I think there's something that needs to be acknowledged about that, because I feel like, and all that to say, we still had to earn all the money to go on the trip itself, if that makes sense. I think it's important to I think I should say it's easy to look at a white family traveling the world and think, well, of course they had the money, they grew up with the money. And Danica and I don't come from families that have money. We worked it ourselves. And even if you are from a more developed place, I have seen people fulfill the dream of traveling the world. Or Jolie's a great example. She's been to 50 countries and she grew up in a conflict zone. She was the first woman to drive. She speaks 7 languages. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of ambition, I look to her for inspiration because she's had many setbacks and yet she continues,
Yeah.
She figures a way forward.
It seems like it's the hallmark that you don't camp out at your biggest regret or your biggest loss. And I think sometimes it's natural to have something happen. You lost the relationship, you lost the job, you lost whatever, and to make that your identity. But to move on from that, I practiced law for 32 years. And at some point, I just said, you know what? While I'm capable of doing this, I wasn't made to do this. I had a office in this big building in downtown Seattle, and I walked in, and the receptionist said, "Hi, who are you here to see?" I said, "That's actually my name on the wall behind you." And I realized it had been 1 year since I'd been in the office. I'd fly up to Seattle 4 times a week, but I wouldn't go to the office. I'd go and meet with people or go to court or do whatever I did. And I realized the rest of my time I started spending overseas and in different places because I'd actually changed. While I was capable of being a lawyer, the guy I had changed into was somebody that wanted to build schools. The reason I knew that is because a lot of people, including invisible children, was out there doing that. Remember the first time I went to Uganda was with you guys. Yeah. Something had gone a little awry. And so I went over.
You're trying to break bread, right?
Whatever. Something went a little bit weird. And so
as it does.
It does. Yeah. That's right. It can get kind of wonky.
Yeah.
And so I went over there to see, is there any way we could unwonk this? And while I was there, I thought, I'm a lawyer. Why don't I go to the courthouse? And when I was there, there's a door and there was a bunch of guys with machine guns out in front. So I figured whoever's behind that door must have some power. So I went, made my way through and knocked, and turns out it's the Chief Justice of their Supreme Court. And so that would be an example of how, now that's a decade-long friendship of where you just don't wait for permission.
Yeah.
You know what your ambition is. You know what your capabilities are. You know what your desires are. Get on with it. Do the next thing.
Exactly. And I think you and I have the same outlook, which I don't know if it can be taught or if it's just nature, but no one is untouchable. Like literally anyone in the world who's breathing today, like if you really want to get to them and you have a very good reason to get to them, you can. If you work hard enough, and they can say no, but
even if they say no, it's awesome.
It's still an adventure.
We were just laughing with some friends here at Love Does. I was going to be in London on May 14th. So I wrote to the Queen. I said, I'm going to be in London on the 14th. If you're in London on the 14th, I mean, we should hang out. And one of her ladies in waiting wrote back a week later. She said, the Queen is terribly disappointed she can't. I'm just sure it just tore all up. But I'm like, but that idea, like to fail trying. Give it a whirl. For $1 in an envelope, you could be talking to Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't camp out on that. Kind of to your point when we started, this idea of having multiple ideas that you're launching forward. I think at a carnival, they have those ponies that just squirt the water into the hole and the pony starts moving down the track. And just get 6 ponies and just whichever pony's out in front. That's your fast pony.
Exactly.
Get on that.
And that's actually how I pursue it. And I can tell you that I haven't figured it out. I'm not an expert. I'm 40 years old and I still feel like I need to listen to this podcast to have more insight into to do my next things. Cause I still have a dozen things I want to have happen in the next 20, 30 years. So
isn't that great to have? And you can have them in small, medium, and large. You can have some things that are ambitions like I want to bring peace to the world. And you could start by knowing somebody in a conflict zone or somebody that's causing a conflict. Or you can have small ambitions like I want to jump a dirt bike like 40 feet.
Yeah.
Well, whatever it is that's your thing, but I would get the bike or get in the conflict. There's a difference between reading about things and participating in things. And one of the things I've noticed about you and my other friends that have pursued their ambitions, they tend to go and get in the zip code of wherever it is. You didn't just study Uganda from afar. You went to Uganda. And tell us now about what your ambitions are next. Like what's next for you?
Yeah. So I have a few. I'll talk about the immediate ones. I'm working on 2 films right now, and they're both intense in terms of demanding. One is for an organization called Preemptive Love, and they're just astounding. I got to go visit their work in Iraq. We went to Mosul and saw the destruction and met the individuals that they're really working with. I've never seen any work quite like this, and it's because they're the first to enter when the bombs are going off or when ISIS is still occupying. They actually go towards those individuals who are experiencing the violence to provide aid and medicine. But then they stay for as long as it takes to rebuild through jobs and through education. And so they're launching this incredible campaign called Love Anyway. And the book's coming out and making the movie. But the whole intention is just to get you as the individual to reach across enemy lines and become friends with someone who's different than you. And so it's a really difficult campaign. It sounds simple, but if you really think about going to meet someone who you don't know that's different than you, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
It's a little bit sketchy, you know?
Yeah.
And yet what I find fascinating, and we're in the midst of like writing the script and doing it all, is that we can touch a button on our phone and a stranger arrives in a car and we get in it. We can book a room at an Airbnb and you're sleeping in a stranger's bed. You know what I'm saying? So we've commodified or we've created relationships based on transaction. What if we built an app or a website that connected you for no other reason than maybe you could be friends?
Yeah.
And what if millions of people started doing this around the world? It would be the largest like kind of frontline community made up of diverse people on the planet.
Just peeling that back for a moment, that would be an example of another beautiful ambition. So Jeremy Courtney, just blue chip guy, finds you a guy that tells stories really well.
Yeah.
And you don't know exactly what you're going to do right out of the chutes, but you get in the zip code.
Right.
And then you start then teasing that ambition out to say, how could we communicate that in a way that people would be called to action to
Yeah.
do something? So I guess what I take from that is, again, it's another example of saying you've got a beautiful ambition. How do we include people in that ambition? And it's going to be like probably not days and days of work to pull this thing together,
Oh yeah.
but years and years. Or
It's
at least-
it's going to be a while, but I mean, it's going to launch in 6 months, so it's going to launch in September. And you know, the great thing about the time at Invisible Children and the Coney 2012 phenomenon was now I have somewhat of a rule book to go by, and it's a different situation, but there are enough similarities to kind of prepare them to launch a really ambitious campaign. We want it to be global. We want it to do really well, because if it does well, the world gets more healthy and united and, you know, offline, which would be, you know, great for a lot of people as well, to build relationships offline made up of people that you would have never met had this campaign not launched.
You know
And
what
so
I
it's like so exciting, but it could fail. We don't know.
Yeah, I just wish there was a video on your face right now as you just light up. You're just ready to pop. You didn't see some of the setbacks that you experienced before as disqualifying you. You saw those as preparing you. And that is the hallmark of a person that gets their ambitions done. And so, again, if you're listening, it might be some ambition you've had. You've held back and taken the next step because you go like, well, what if it happens again? But instead, turn the corner and say, this might just prepare you for the next thing. And you keep pointing towards the horizon.
Right.
When an opportunity comes by, say like, actually, I'm really good at telling stories. I know how to do a global movement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that when the breakdown happened and when we went through this transition, leaving Invisible Children and being completely heartbroken and defeated and feeling like a total failure, which lasted years, by the way, like there's still, it's not like I overcame it. I'm still going through the notion that when people look at me, they don't like me based off of the things that are on the internet. And there's a lot on the internet about me that is just pretty hateful and hurtful and
We actually
untrue.
love you.
You know what I'm saying? So navigating that, but realizing you cannot actually plan on how life's going to go. Like you can make plans and all of this, but as we know, the only thing you can do is actually react to the things that life gives you. And so I could very much like just go away forever, you know, because it was such a difficult experience that I went through, but I'm going to choose to react to it as a lesson, you know, as a way. And now that my life really, you know, deconstructed, not my personal life, but my professional life, which is all of three really cares about, is that, that this didn't happen to me at 65. You know, this happened to me when I was young enough to go, oh, like all the things that I thought were like of value and stature shattered. And was it even my fault? That's the other thing too, that I have to make peace with, is like, was it really something that I did to bring it upon myself? Or do breakdowns just happen when your brain stops working because 100 million voices are inside of it?
And it just takes a lot of courage to pursue ambitions. It just does. At the end of the day, you're feeling like you've had this thing, but you just feel like there's all these impediments in the way. I just hope you'll hear voices that are among the ones that I trust the most. You would be one of the guys I'd go to. And we've spent a lot of time together talking to other friends about how to pursue it. We teach a class. We've taught it several times together up at Pepperdine Law.
Yeah.
And we get all these Pepperdine Law students are all about like win, win, win. And that's terrific. But to just get super real, like that's where the good stuff happens in people's lives. Jason, thank you so much for making a little time to talk. Man, you are a guy that I've respected from afar for a little while, but I wasn't willing to just respect you from afar. I wanted to become friends. And then if I trace back what we've done with Love Does, it started because you invited me to go and to do something that I might be able to help with. I don't even know if I was successful at it, but I got invited by a guy who had vision. That's what happens when you're pursuing your ambitions. You just suck people into the vortex behind you, and then all these other things. And the crazy part is you wouldn't even see as we're sitting in the Love Does office here. We have things going on in all kinds of different countries. They've got your nose. They've got your eyes. It was just because you were the guy that said, I actually think there's this bigger than just me. I want to involve other people. So I just want to thank you on behalf of all the people impacted by the small things we're doing at Love Does, because you just included me. That's what people who have beautiful ambitions do. They start multiplying in other people's lives. And I'm one of the guys.
Well, I feel the same way. Everywhere I go, it's Bob Goff, Bob Goff, Bob Goff. And then they'll be like, you know him? You actually know him? I'm like, yeah. We've known each other for a while. And they're like, oh my God. And they'll like start crying. They're like, he changed my life. It's so good. And so when I hear you, have the Dream Big platform, it's like the greatest gift you could give to someone is courage. Like encourage, when you break down encourage the word, it's to give courage. And that's truly what it takes. And I think that you're 100% right, that is a compounding force. It's magnetic, right? So if someone is courageous or says, you can do it, you can go, that will ripple out. And they're going to tell others, you can do it, you can go.
Yeah, because you reestablish what's normative behavior. And you're making it normative to love your enemies. You're making it normative to just chill out. It doesn't mean that you don't have opinions. I got an opinion about everything, but I want to choose love beyond that. I want my love for people to dwarf my opinions about them.
And I think one more thing, which is like you're probably the quintessential example of someone whose work is so inspiring and so meaningful and so generous, but your personal life is equally matched in terms of, the story you're telling when you arrive to work every day, but you also know the story you're telling at home. And there's very few people, maybe none that I can think of, that have both of those in a place where I can look to and say, that's who I want to be. Like Bob Goff is who I want to be. I want to turn into love. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I want to turn into love like Bob Goff has.
Man, thank you. Well, that gives me a good target to aim for. I haven't arrived there yet, but I'm like that idea for if you're listening, figure out your ambition. Find voices around you, not just smart people. They're a dime a dozen. Find wise people that are pointing towards the horizon. Forget what's in your rear view mirror. That's for combing your hair. What you want to do is look out and then find a couple people to go along, get swept up in the vortex. I did. And again, I want to thank you for being that catalyst in my life.
Yes. And know that fear and doubt and anxiety and worry and you're going to mess up are a part of it. If you can actually kind of make them your friends and be like, okay, I see you over there. Little fear, I see you. And that's okay. I was told that you were going to be here.
Yes.
That's a part of it. Because I think people get overwhelmed with the anxiety or with the what if it doesn't work out. And you're like, no, everyone went through that to get to their ambition.
Yeah. And all these disappointments along the way, I'm like, really? I've got spots all over me.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh no, I've got angel kisses.
Yeah. Love scars.
Yeah. Like that idea that you could say, like, it's finding a new context for what's gone on in your life. To see these things as preparing you for what's next.
Yep.
Well, man, I love you.
Love you. Thanks for having me.
Well, but that's exactly the kind of conversation we're hoping to have for this podcast. It felt like I was eavesdropping on a couple of really good friends.
Yeah, Jason is just such an authentic guy, and I hope that I would see that kind of authenticity in my life. And has the ability to continue to be creative. He's had a couple setbacks, but he's not defined by those.
Well, I was taking notes. One of the things Jason said that really stuck out to me, he said, always have a few dreams cooking. And that definitely sounds like the same kind of advice you've given me over the years.
Always 5 or 6. Even when you get one that gets delayed a little bit, I'm not smart enough to know why it didn't happen. I just know it's not coming to pass. So I have 4 other ones that I'm pursuing. And it's that whole idea of just get on the fastest pony you got. And sometimes for those listening, it'll be something that you've wanted to do for the longest time, but somebody hit the pause button. I wouldn't just stick with one thing. I would launch 5 and then just go with the one that seems to be out in front, where your capabilities, the opportunities present themselves, and you take action on those. You don't just say, I'm still looking. And it's the difference between being prepared and being ready. So we've got a lot of people that are spending all their time preparing, and I want people that are ready.
Well, speaking of things cooking, you've got these 2 events coming up, these 2 Dream Big live workshop. So one's going to be in Waco, Texas at Magnolia, and the other one's going to be in Tennessee at Onsite. Tell me about this.
Oh, ended up being that's when our friends out in Magnolia had time, and I was like, I so want to do a Dream Big down there. For those of you that have followed what's been going down in Waco, Texas, it's just beautiful. That would be evidence of some people running after beautiful big dreams. And then the reason we did on-site is not only is it an awesome time of year in Tennessee, but our friends there, we have about 60 people we can fit into these cabins that they have at on-site, and it's on hundreds and hundreds of acres just outside of Nashville. And it's actually a place where Marie and I have gone, where we needed some help from some wise friends to just say, man, what do we do next? How do we get from where we are to where we're going? A lot of on-site has been about, historically, talking about where you were and where you are and how that has shaped your past, has shaped your present. And Dream Big is all about where do you go from here. And it felt like it was that Reese's peanut butter thing where you got the chocolate and the peanut butter together.
Yeah.
We thought, oh my gosh, the last time we were at on-site, we just got 60 people together and said, let's take a look using some of the best counselors I know in the U.S. about how did you get here. And now let's say, where are we going from here?
Okay, so somebody's thinking about going. What's the pitch? Why should they go, Bob?
You know what it's perfect for is somebody that's had an ambition. You've been thinking about this thing, but the busyness of life and work and relationships and other things just kind of squeeze that out. If you want to get out that ambition, dust it off, drive it around the block, and to say, it isn't brain candy. It isn't like, let me just think about it. We're not going to push the peas around on the plate. We're going to say, let's get it done. What do we do? You've had this ambition, man, of God put that in your heart or your head, wherever it landed,
right?
Decades ago. Let's go do something about it. I don't want to just have these things that I wish I had gotten around to. Let's actually swing for the fences and say, if you want to write a book, well, let's go. We'll start by writing a sentence, and then maybe it'll turn into a paragraph. But don't just say that's an ambition that I'm never going to get to. If you wanted to be a playwright, let's get busy. If you want to learn how to do the tango, we won't do the tango at Dream Big, but that would be awesome. What we'll do is to say, let's get busy. And we have folks that come along with us. We call them the Genius Bar. And we just bring them along to just say, how do we get there? What do we do next? Let's make that call right now. Not next Wednesday, like right now. So if you're ready to move from just thinking about it to getting it done, that this is the place for you.
So if you want to learn more about those two live workshops, go to dreambigframework.com. Really, if you think now is a good time to invest in your dreams, to spend some time with Bob, a group of other friends who are really engaging in their dreams, their big ambitions, then this is going to be perfect for you. So we've got Magnolia coming up. We've got On-Site. It's dreambigframework.com. Send us an email if you have any questions, but there's a bunch of stuff on the website for you. This is multiple times over you've done these Dream Big live workshops, and the results of what we're hearing about of people launching their big dreams is just phenomenal. So just want to say thanks, Bob. Everybody's got big ambitions inside of them, but not all of us know what to do with them. We're not sure how to let them come out and come alive. That's what the Dream Big live workshops are for, and we've got two of them coming your way. One on May 14th through 16th. This is Dream Big Magnolia. Yep, Waco, Texas, the place that Chip and Joanna Gaines put on the map. A couple of big dreamers who have made something beautiful come to life. Come spend 3 days with us, exploring your big ambitions, walking through the framework that can help you define, declare, and unleash them to the world. Later in May, we're going to On-Site just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, May 31st through June 3rd. And this is a chance not only to go through the Dream Big framework around a company of friends, but also to go a little bit deeper on your inner journey, on your past story, so that you can clear the path for some of the deeper stuff that's inside you that maybe has been holding you back. And so go to the website, dreambigframework.com, to check out those 2 live workshops coming just around the corner in May at Magnolia and Onsite, and we would love to see you there.